Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is always my favorite video to film. I'm always like waiting not so patiently for the end of the month so that I'm able to literally talk to you guys about books for like 15 minutes straight. That is literally all a girl could ever ask for, so that's what we're gonna be doing today. I read a total of 11 books this month. Honestly, I had the best reading month by far. I feel like as it gets like colder and colder and goes more into like fall, winter time, I'm always reading more and more books just because the weather gets like gloomy and rainy and I'm just like so ready to just sit and read a lot of books, and it's just like the perfect reading vibe. Anyways, as you can see, I have a lot of like the physical books here, but I think first I want to talk about the Kindle books that I read because that's always just like so much easier if we start with the Kindle books, get those out of the way, because I normally don't read very many books on my Kindle. I want to start doing that more because like look at my bookshelf, it's getting pretty full. Like I'm always buying more rom-coms, but as you can see the rom-com section is like filled to the brim. I don't think that I could fit more books if I tried. Anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about all of the books that I read in July. The first one I want to talk about that I read on my Kindle is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This was such an anticipated release for me because I read Powerless pretty soon after it came out and everyone was kind of raving about Powerless. I ended up giving Powerless a 5 stars. So then with Reckless, I was like, obviously, I think this is going to be another 5-star book for me. It is the second book in that series, but I did give Reckless a 4.5 stars. Honestly, there wasn't much of a reason why it wasn't a 5-star other than it just didn't give me a 5-star feeling. It kind of felt like a buffer book between the first and the third book because the first book, obviously, there's so much going on. These characters are just getting to know each other. You're just getting to know these characters. And then I feel like for the second book, for Reckless, it was kind of just like, felt more so of a buffer. There was a lot going on, but I think it was more so setting up for the third book. That plot twist at the end actually got me. I don't know if I'm just like a very gullible, easily fooled person or the plot twist was actually like insane, but I was not expecting that in the slightest, okay? And now I'm just like so excited for the third book to come out. I will say I enjoyed Reckless so much still. Like I read it in like literally a day. Anyways, the next book that I read on my Kindle is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. I think I gave it like a 3 stars if I'm being completely honest. It didn't have my intention crazy. It was a good book, but I kind of guessed what the ending would be. So Home is Where the Bodies Are gives you like perspectives of 3 different siblings. Their mother has just passed away and their dad left them when they were little, so there are many things from their past that kind of need to be uncovered. They end up finding this tape that basically shows that their parents were guilty of this specific thing. I can't tell you what it is, but they're kind of trying to 1, prove their parents' innocence, 2, dig up the past to see what actually happened, and 3, obviously find who did it. I think I was more interested in like the siblings and like why they were so upset at each other over things rather than like the actual plot of the story and figuring out like what happened all those years ago. So yeah, Home is Where the Bodies Are really wasn't like the book that I was expecting it would be, but it wasn't like super bad. I would definitely still recommend it because I read that book in like 2 days, but you know, it just wasn't anything special, so 3 stars. Anyways, that concludes all the books that I read on my Kindle this month. Let's move on to the audiobooks that I read, or rather listened to this month. The first audiobook I listened to is Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. Honestly, I gave this book a 3.75 stars. I think originally I gave it a 3.5, but yes, I know, like, not much difference, Bryn. Like, really? It's not that deep, but I'm gonna give it a 3.75 because I have been thinking about the book. So the whole book follows Tasana. She basically is a former slave. She had to go into slavery. She had to go into slavery in the first place to run away from her kingdom. There was basically like a whole war happening within her kingdom. And the thing about Tasana is she has this whole dream of like going back to her kingdom, saving them, saving her family, you know, making sure everything's okay after the war. But before she can do that, she has to go to some like higher up people. I don't know. Okay, it's always so hard for me to explain like fantasy worlds to you guys when you guys like obviously probably have not read this yet and don't understand the fantasy world, but she basically has to go to like these higher up people and she has to train with them to become one of them so she can go back to her kingdom. It does end up having romance in it because this guy named Max is basically the person training her for all of this stuff. I don't know, I just feel like the book went from like a normal fantasy book to a romantasy and then back to a fantasy book. I also think I was a little less intrigued because I did listen to it audiobook form, so it was like, I'm sorry. It was like, I'm sorry, like I have other things I'm doing. So 3.5 stars, okay? We don't need to talk about it any further. And then the next book that I listened to was 800 Grapes by Laura Dave. I was kind of switching back and forth between audiobook and like physical book the whole time. I actually own this book. So this is the first physical book that I can actually show you guys. I was eating it up the whole time, for lack of better term. It was such a short read, but I feel like they spent the perfect amount of time on every little detail, every little thing that was occurring in this book. I normally don't like reading super short books because I just don't get attached to the characters characters in the ways that I wish I would. I don't really learn all the backstory because you're trying to like rush a book. I just feel like a lot of the times short books feel rushed, but this one literally was so perfect. I'm giving this book a 5 stars. Truly, I feel like each problem that arises in this book, like they spent the perfect amount of time on each issue in the book and each like thought that the character had. I don't feel like it was dragged out. I don't feel like it was rushed. It was just like the perfect amount of time spent on each little thing. And let me tell you what this book is about. Maybe I should actually try telling you what the books are about for once. This whole book is following Georgia, and basically she grew up on this winery, you know, growing grapes with her parents and her siblings. And then something happens with her and her fiance. She ends up going back to the winery because she's always just found such peace and comfort. And she's always just felt like the winery was home to her, so she went back home. Kind of expects her family to remain the same, to like always be there the same way that they were before. But plot twist, they aren't, and people change. Georgia's trying to, one, grapple with the fact that so many things have changed in her life, and she's obviously a person who doesn't like change, which we learn throughout the book. But it's really a book about Georgia finding herself in a book full of second chances, and like maybe things didn't go the way that you expected they would go, but like it turned out so much better than you could have ever imagined. I honestly didn't think that this book would end up being a 5 stars for me, but it was just so good and it was such a fun time, and I read it so quickly and I love it. Okay, this book belongs on my favorite shelf. The next book I want to talk about is no other than Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. Honestly, loved this book so much. I still think about it a lot, but I think that honestly just something was lacking. This whole book is following these 6 different, it calls them outcasts, and they're all going on this heist. It says a convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as the Wraith, a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. So those are all of the characters in this book. Honestly, I think the only reason I docked it like 8.5 was just because it was a little bit difficult to like go through all 6 characters' POVs. Like it is a split POV between 6 different characters. I also would like to apologize because these books are in no particular order. So yes, we did just like go from dark fantasy book to happy rom-com, but the next book I read is a novel love story by Ashley Poston. I honestly disappointed. The book that we love is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, obviously. I have so much love in my heart for this book. I think this is honestly one of my favorite books of all time. I literally want everyone in my life to read this book. But on that note, we all know I obviously was super excited for another Ashley Poston book. Like, this is her newest release. This came out this year, and I got my hands on it right away because I love Ashley Poston's writing, and that is still saying something about this book because I did love her writing in this book still. I still give this book a 4 stars because when I compare it to like other rom-coms I've read, this is one of the better rom-coms I have read. But it's really difficult for me because honestly I'm still going to compare it to The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Like there's no way that I'm not going to be able to compare the 2 books. Like the premise sounds like so much fun. Like everything is the same about this town. Like she's literally living within the pages of her favorite book. She gets to meet these characters that she loves. She gets to see these places that she fell in love with through books. That's literally like dreamland for me. Honestly, while yes, this was a rom-com, I feel like it should have been like advertised as just like fiction or something because every single time the romance would show up, I feel like it was only showing up because it was convenient for the author and there was nothing else to write about. The next books I read I'm going to talk about kind of together because they're both by the same author and they're both like YA closed door rom-coms, which we know. I love that, okay? Better Than the Movies happens to be a reread for me because I read this like a year and a half ago now, but I decided to like reread it. I'm going to keep Better Than the Movies at a 5 stars. I gave this a 5 star a year and a half ago and I feel like it holds true. Then we have The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. I gave this book a 3.5 stars and I'll explain, okay? It was a very cute story and it had very lovable characters, but it is a time loop book. I feel like when dealing with time loop books, it can get very repetitive very fast. Like obviously these days are repeating over and over, especially in this book. We're following Emily. It's Valentine's Day. There's just like things that keep occurring on Valentine's Day that are like kind of like just horrible things that keep happening to her. Emily's just having one of those days where like you wish you could just wake up and restart the day again. And that's honestly exactly what happens. This next book, guys, you're gonna have to give me a few minutes to talk about. Truly, I'll never shut up about this book. The day I shut up about this book is the day that I am in my grave 6 feet under. Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I have been recommended this book like countless times and I have finally read it and I'm so mad at myself that I have just read this book and like I didn't read it months ago. But I'm in love with this book. I'm in love with these characters. Evangeline is literally like, basically feels like she's cursed. Like a lot of these things that are occurring in her life, she just keeps looking back at it and she's like why are these things happening to me? This whole book is following Evangeline. The guy that she's in love with is basically due to marry her sister, which is actually insane, but she's like, why why is he not talking to me anymore? Why is he like ghosting me? Why is he acting like I don't exist? Like Evangeline is so convinced that he got cursed and like he's not talking to her because he's cursed, and so she ends up going to the Prince of Hearts to break his curse so that like she can marry him. I just read you guys some quotes from this book real quick because one, I want you guys to understand why I love Evangeline so much and why she is one of my like favorite main characters of all time, but also you guys can understand like how magical this book is because it truly just like it felt like a fairy tale. The first quote says, her father Maximilian had always spoken of magic as if it were real, and her mother had been from the magnificent north, where there was no difference between fairy tales and history. All stories are made of both truths and lies, she used to say. What matters is the way that we believe in them. Okay, this one's a long quote. I am so sorry, but I have to read this to you, okay? This is like my one chance to get all of this stuff out. It says, one of the stories Leanna used to tell Evangeline was the Ballad of the Archer and the Fox, a romantic tale about a crafty peasant girl who could transform into a fox and the young archer who loved her, but was cursed with the need to hunt her down and kill her. Evangeline loved the story because she too was a fox, even if she wasn't the sort who could turn into an animal. She may have also had a tiny crush on the archer. Evangeline made her mother tell her the tale over and over, but since the story was cursed, every time her mother neared the end, she would suddenly forget what she'd been saying. She could never tell Evangeline if the archer kissed his fox girl and they lived happily together forever, or if he killed the fox girl, ending their story in death. Evangeline would always ask her mother to just tell her how she thought the story ended, but her mother always refused. I believe there are far more possibilities than happily ever after or tragedy. Every story has a potential for infinite endings. I only have like 3 books left, so please bear with me, okay? Next book I read is Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer. I actually ended up giving this book a 3 stars. Which really hurts me to say because Renegades by Marissa Meyer, the first book in this trilogy, 5 stars. Like, Renegades was a 5 stars, but every time I think of Arch Enemies, there was just some sort of disconnect occurring. I feel like it was right book, wrong time. Like, truly when I think about it, if I reread this book at a time where I'm actually wanting to read this book, I think I would have enjoyed it like miles more and probably give it like 4 stars. The next book I read is none other than Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. I think this book was like one of the most hyped book talk books ever to exist. I could not consume a singular form of book content without hearing this book come up in conversation like somehow, somewhere. So I finally had to read it, like not just for me but also for you guys too, because I feel like I just owe it to you guys to like read popular books at the same time, because like I want you guys to understand where my ratings are coming from. I did end up giving this book a 4.5 stars. I think that only really had to do with like right book, wrong time. Like it was one of those situations again where I was just like reading it for a video and I was like, I would not pick up this book. Like, so yeah, those are all of the books that I read this month. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope that this was interesting even though I literally sat here and I yapped and I ranted for like 10 minutes straight. Like, I will continue to do that. It is my YouTube channel. Okay? I read so many books this month, and if I'm being completely honest, I think that next month I just want to slow down a little bit. I feel like a lot of the times when I am rushing to finish books for like different videos and stuff, I'm not enjoying the books as much as I wish that I would. What I'm trying to say is like I just feel like I need to slow down a little bit, enjoy my books a little bit more, and like get back to enjoying reading, because obviously I enjoy reading. Like, I would not be here if I didn't. I would not be sitting here talking about books with you guys if I didn't, but I still don't think I'm at like the full potential of enjoying reading as much as I like wished that I was. Anyways, that's about all I have for you guys today. I love you so much. I will see you guys super soon for some more book content, some more vlogs, some more just fun videos. Bye guys.